हेलो स्टूडेंट्स। तो अब तक हमने डिमांड साइड को देखा था इन टर्म्स ऑफ कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर। वी सॉ इन द सप्लाई साइड हाउ डिफरेंट मार्केट्स एक्ट विथ ईच अदर एंड कैसे कोई प्रोड्यूसर ऑपरेट्स इन डिफरेंट इंडस्ट्रीज। सो अभी तक हमने देखा था डिमांड साइड विच वाज कैप्चर्ड बाय कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर। ओके, आज हम लोग एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट और अहम कदम लेने वाले हैं इनटू द सप्लाई साइड एंड वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट प्रोडक्शन एंड कॉस्ट। ओके, नाउ प्रोडक्शन एंड कॉस्ट में दो मेन एलिमेंट्स हैं। लेट मी गिव यू अ ब्रीफ बिफोर वी गो इनटू द इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स दैट आई विल वांट टू डू विथ यू टुडे। तो सबसे पहले प्रोडक्शन में we are going to define or talk about the production function. The quantity is a function of inputs. So ये हो गया output और ये हो गया input. यहां पर L is denoting inputs that can be changed in a very short period and are called variable inputs. K will denote inputs that cannot be changed in a short period of time and they're called fixed inputs. ओके, ये प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन से इंट्रिंसिकली निकल कर आता है एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट विच इज कॉल्ड द शॉर्ट रन एंड द लॉन्ग रन कॉन्सेप्ट। ठीक है, शॉर्ट रन का मतलब है ऐसा पीरियड ऑफ टाइम जहां पर ओनली द वेरिएबल इनपुट कैन बी चेंज्ड एंड लॉन्ग रन इज दैट पीरियड ऑफ टाइम जहां पर ऑल इनपुट्स कैन बी चेंज्ड। Like, for example, in a very short period of time, I cannot change the capacity of my machines if I am a manufacturer. But if I think about a time frame of, say, 2 years or 3 years, I can change my entire infrastructure. I can change not only my variable input, but also my fixed machinery input, wherein I can increase my capacity or reduce my capacity as the need may be. ओके, सो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट है विच इज वेरी सिमिलर टू व्हाट वी डिड इन कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर व्हेन वी सॉ द यूटिलिटी फंक्शन। यहां पर है प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन वेयर Q इज द आउटपुट एंड द टू इनपुट्स आर L एंड K। ओके, जैसे यूटिलिटी फंक्शन के बाद में हमने देखा था द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी, यहां पर द कॉन्सेप्ट विल कम टू मार्जिनल प्रोडक्टिविटी ऑफ लेबर, which is nothing but if I increase my labor by 1 unit, how much is my output increasing? If I increase my capital by 1 unit, how much is my output increasing? Is my MPK. Average productivity of labor is average में कितना labor required है in order to produce a particular amount of output, and average productivity of capital is basically how much capital is required in order to produce a particular output Q. Okay, when we talked about indifference curve in consumer behavior, we have a very similar concept in production behavior or the producer's behavior, and that is called isoquant. Isoquant is the same quantity being produced with different combinations of L and K. So in the LK space, we get bowed out curves like this, which will give us same quantity being produced for different level of inputs. ठीक है? Now the slope of the indifference curve, as we saw in consumer behavior, was MRS. यहाँ पर the slope of the isoquant is marginal rate of technical substitution, which is minus MPL by MPK. And how the isocost line कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर में क्या था? इंडिफरेंस कर्व प्लस बजट लाइन गिविंग अस ऑप्टिमल एक्स स्टार वाई स्टार. प्रोड्यूसर बिहेवियर में हाउ आइसो कॉस्ट लाइन प्लस आइसो क्वांट gives us optimal इनपुट डिमांड. तो इधर भी आइसो कॉस्ट लाइन कुछ ऐसा बनेगा विच इज सिमिलर टू द बजट लाइन, एंड ये टेंजेंसी पॉइंट पे आई गेट अ पॉइंट जहां पर आई विल बी चूजिंग द अमाउंट ऑफ एल एंड के एज रिक्वायर्ड. ठीक है. तो ये एल स्टार के स्टार इज बेसिकली द ऑप्टिमल इनपुट डिमांड. अब ये ऑप्टिमल इनपुट डिमांड इज द प्रोडक्शन एंगल. यहां से एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फंक्शन निकल कर आता है, दैट इज द कॉस्ट फंक्शन. Cost function is a function where the cost is a function of only output. तो सबसे पहले प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन में हमने आउटपुट को डिटरमाइन किया, फिर ये आउटपुट से वी विल डिटरमाइन कॉस्ट. कॉस्ट फंक्शन क्या निकालता है? मिनिमम कॉस्ट टू प्रोड्यूस a given output. What is the minimum cost to produce a given output? That is what we get from the cost function. ठीक है? Right? And in order to calculate it, it comes from the ISO cost line. So ISO cost line is basically WL plus RK. And when I maximize my output given L and K, what I get is L will be some function of output W and R, and similarly K will be some function of output W and R, and that is substituted in the cost function here such that cost is ultimately a function of Q, W and R. This W and R are exogenous, and hence I'm not writing it here. Those are basically exogenous constants, right? कॉस्ट फंक्शन को ऐसे निकालते हैं. कॉस्ट फंक्शन को निकालने के बाद में काफी सारे important aspects of a cost function also come into play, like for example concept of total cost is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost. This happens in the short run. फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट का मतलब कि फिक्स्ड इनपुट पे कितना कॉस्ट इनकर हो रहा है, वेरिएबल कॉस्ट इज कितना वेरिएबल कॉस्ट is being incurred on the variable input. Okay, then we get the concept of average total cost. Average total cost is total cost by Q, which is equal to fixed cost by Q plus variable cost by Q, and we get the concept of average fixed cost plus average variable cost. The concept of marginal cost is basically how much is my total cost increasing by if I increase my quantity by 1 unit. Okay, बहुत अच्छा रिलेशनशिप है बिटवीन मार्जिनल कॉस्ट एंड मार्जिनल प्रोडक्ट. सो मिनिमम मार्जिनल कॉस्ट विल मीन मैक्सिमम मार्जिनल प्रोडक्ट. सिमिलरली मिनिमम एवरेज कॉस्ट विल मीन मैक्सिमम एवरेज प्रोडक्टिविटी. ओके, सो ये हो गया एक ब्रीफ इंसाइट इनटू द प्रोडक्शन एंड कॉस्ट थ्योरी. नाउ वील बेसिकली गो इनटू कि क्या इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट्स है that you really have to think about and cover when it comes to the UGC NET Economics examination, when it comes to production and cost. So key concepts to cover first with the production function and returns to scale will be to understand the law of variable proportions. It's a classical short run law where I have to talk about the variable input and how it is affecting output. I will identify the various stages of production and talk about the law of variable proportions. We'll talk about an important production function which has featured in the UGC NET examination very often, and that's the Cobb-Douglas and the CES production function. CES is constant elasticity of substitution production function, that is CES. Okay. Now, a few features of the Cobb-Douglas are constant returns to scale, elasticity of substitution is one. अभी elasticity of substitution क्या है वो भी मैं अभी बताने वाला हूँ. And CES production function can generate a Cobb-Douglas or a Leontief depending on the requirement. We'll also briefly touch upon the translog function, which is basically used to approximate any sort of a production function. जो production function आपको चाहिए उसका value इसमें put करेंगे and that production function you'll get. So let's get into it. Let's firstly talk about very briefly about the law of variable proportions. इसके बारे में वापस हम लोग डिटेल में बात करेंगे in a while. So when increasing the quantity of a variable input, so कुछ ऐसा ग्राफ बनेगा यहाँ पे. In the LQ space, this is the maximum quantity. इससे ज्यादा अगर मैं L को इंक्रीज किया then basically I'll have a negative quantity addition. मतलब कि I increase my labor and my quantity falls. Before Q naught, I increase my labor and my quantity is increasing at an increasing pace. This is quantity increasing but at a reducing pace. This is quantity falling. So तीन stages of production identify होता है law of variable proportions में, which is basically dependent on the marginal productivity and the average productivity. It is basically a concept which is applicable in the short run, where at least one of the factors fixed. That's exactly why यहाँ पर L है and Q है. K is fixed. I change my L, what is the effect on my quantity? So सबसे पहले increasing marginal returns is my first stage of production. Second stage of production is MP is falling but it is positive. And third stage is where MP is going down. So ये same production function पे if I were to extend it and basically draw marginal product, ये L है, यहाँ पर मैं ले लेता हूँ marginal productivity of labor and average productivity of labor. So इसको extend कर लेते हैं Q naught, ये तो कुछ ऐसा होगा. This is my marginal productivity of labor. This is my average productivity of labor. आप देख सकते हैं कि marginal productivity is increasing till this point, then it is reducing but positive till this point. इसके बाद में तो marginal productivity negative है. That's exactly why I increase my labor and my output is reducing. Okay. Assumption यहाँ पर क्या है? Technology is constant. वही technology चल रहा है. Inputs used in variable proportions, that is खाली variable input को ले रहे हैं, and homogeneity of variable inputs, मतलब कि each and every input will contribute in the same possible manner in the output. मतलब कि each and every labor is homogeneous, heterogeneous नहीं है. The intent and the capacity of each labor is the same. Explains why short run curves are U-shaped. So ये जो सिचुएशन है इससे फिर आपका जो कॉस्ट कर्व्स है, कॉस्ट कर्व्स कुछ ऐसे बन जाते हैं, एवरेज कॉस्ट कर्व कुछ ऐसा बनेगा, मार्जिनल कॉस्ट कर्व कुछ ऐसा बनेगा। ये रिड्यूस कर रहा है इन एमपीएल पॉजिटिव, ये अपवर्ड स्लोपिंग है व्हेन एमपीएल इज नेगेटिव। ओके, व्हेन एमपीएल फॉल्स, सॉरी। अब चलते हैं in understanding the Cobb-Douglas production function. It was postulated by Charles Cobb and Paul Douglas in the year 1928. The functional form is this: a k to the power alpha l to the power beta, where q is the output. A is the total factor productivity, it's basically a constant. K is capital, L is labor, and alpha and beta are the output elasticities of capital and labor respectively. Okay, constant returns to scale if alpha and beta is equal to 1, alpha plus beta is equal to 1. Elasticity of substitution always in a Cobb-Douglas is 1. Linear homogeneous of degree 1 under CRS. So if alpha and beta sum up to 1, then it is homogeneous of degree 1, right? Easy to estimate using log linear regression. इसको logarithm ले लेंगे, then it becomes a linear. So अगर मैं log ले लूंगा तो ये log q is equal to log a, which is the intercept form, plus alpha log k plus beta log l. So this can be easily estimated with a linear regression, जहां पर alpha and beta is being estimated by the linear regression. So ये regression will be run in order to estimate the values of alpha and beta empirically. इसलिए ये काम में आता है. CES production function is constant elasticity of substitution production function. It has the functional form like this. The functional form is made in a way, that the elasticity of substitution is kept constant at rho. Okay. So 1 by 1 plus rho is what is the elasticity of substitution. It's constant and not equal to 1. The rho can't be equal to 0, but it can be easily used to model a Cobb-Douglas with not equal to 1 or some other utility function or a Leontief. It is basically generalizing Cobb-Douglas, where in Cobb-Douglas sigma was equal to 1, and Leontief where sigma is going to 0. It's constant with sigma not equal to 1. It's more flexible than the Cobb-Douglas, used when substitution between factors is not perfect. Why are we using the CES production function? It's a better fit for empirical data and useful in trade theory. Translog production function is something which has come in terms of only the definition. You don't have to exactly know what is the translog production function, but what you need to know is that this is a production function which can basically generalize any production function, putting in the values, right? So this can easily generalize the Cobb-Douglas. It can easily generalize the Leontief. It can easily generalize the CES. Okay. So it's a flexible functional form, can appropriate any arbitrary production function via the Taylor expansion, allows for non-constant returns to scale, and captures interaction between inputs. Another concept that has featured in many questions in the UGC NET Economics examination is returns to scale. Output changes when all inputs increase proportionally is returns to scale. So returns to scale भी समझना बहुत ही ज्यादा जरूरी है, and बहुत easy concept है ये. Okay, it's a concept where basically I need to understand कि if my inputs are increasing by the same proportion, is my output increasing by that much or an increasing proportion? It's like कि अगर मेरा input 2 times हो जाता है, is my output more than 2 times? अगर ये केस है, मतलब कि I have increasing returns to scale. अगर F2L2K is less than 2 times FLK, then it is decreasing returns to scale. And if F2L2K is equal to 2 of FLK, it means it is constant returns to scale. And ये same चीज यहाँ पर T के माध्यम से मैंने टेबल में लिख दिया है. Okay. So this is a concept which is a long run concept जहां पर मैं K and L दोनों को वेरिएबल बना रहा हूं. So it's basically a long run concept. And Cobb Douglas will exhibit constant returns to scale if alpha and beta is summing up to 1. Elasticity of substitution as a concept is basically d log k by L by d log MPL by MPK. Okay, ये है basically elasticity of substitution. High sigma will basically mean that it is easy to substitute between the two inputs in order to tweak output, and low sigma is that substitutability इतना नहीं है between the two inputs. थोड़ा वो complementary की तरफ जाता है input का relationship. Okay, Leontief में एकदम substitutability नहीं है, that's why sigma is equal to 0. Cobb Douglas में substitutability है, it's equal to 1. Constant elasticity of substitution में it's sigma, it can basically be used to showcase any thing from 0 to infinity. Translog is again, sigma is varying, it's flexible. Okay, sigma CES में constant होता है. Sigma is constant, it's basically 1 by 1 plus rho as we saw here. अब आते हैं cost curve के concept में. I have already explained to you कि in the long run all the inputs are variable. So if all the inputs are variable, वो वाले situation में the cost curves जो निकलता है, those are called the long run cost curves. Okay. In the long run, all the costs are variable. Firms choose optimal plant size depending on their own objectives. Okay. You get usually U-shaped long run average cost curves. When it is diminishing, we call economies of scale. When it is increasing, it's called diseconomies of scale. This is called economies of scale. ये diseconomies है. In many industries, LRAC flattens out at a very high output. Okay. Shape is L-shaped and not U-shaped. These are empirical findings. Basically, ऐसा हो जाता है, थोड़ा flatten out हो जाता है, थोड़ा L-shaped के जैसा बन जाता है. Empirically, ये देखा गया with a few heavy manufacturing industries. So, implication, large firms can sustain constant average cost for a wide range of output. Summary table, law of variable proportions, short run, MP will eventually fall Cobb Douglas. Sigma is equal to 1 for alpha plus beta is equal to 1. CS production function sigma is a constant but not equal to 1. Translog, sigma is flexible or variable and approximates any production function. Returns to scale is output. What is the proportion in which the output is changing proportional to how much input is changing? Elasticity of substitution is input substitutability measure. Okay. And the long run average cost concept in itself is where we see that we get U-shaped cost curve in the long run, but empirically it has been seen that long run average cost curve for many firms are seen as L-shaped. So वो empirical finding पे भी questions have come. That's exactly why ये पूरा concept हमने देखा है. Now, in the next part, what has featured in the behavior of the producer is classically profit maximization has been the aim, and that has what modeled the producer behavior. But that's not always the case. There are multiple other models looking at the behavior of the producer, where the producer may not have the objective as only profit maximization. It many times toggles between revenue maximization to product maximization to growth maximization to revenue maximization or sales maximization. So a lot of these theories have also come in the NET economics paper. So we'll talk about a few of them very, very quickly. So to understand that firms may not always want to maximize the profit, that is the reason why we see so many different models. So सबसे popular and what we usually do in our theory is the neoclassical model where profit maximization actually leads to MR is equal to MC. So what happens is basically profit is total revenue minus total cost. When I profit maximize, I'm basically doing DTR DQ minus DC DQ is equal to 0. So basically marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. That is what is the profit maximizing condition of a neoclassical model. Um, this is applicable both in the short run and the long run. The rule which we just found out was reduce quantity at a level where MC is equal to MR. Okay. Criticism is ignoring managerial discretion and alternative objectives like revenue maximization. Bommel's revenue maximization model is where managers basically prioritize sales revenue over profit, maximize total revenue, which is PQ into Q, subject to the profit is greater than a minimum threshold level. Okay. Output is normally higher than the profit maximizing level and price is lower than in the neoclassical model. Growth maximization model of Robin Maris. Managers seek to maximize the rate of growth of the firm partially through balanced growth of demand and supply side. Okay. Growth of demand, growth of supply. Managers aim to equate the two. So growth must be definitely sustainable. Too fast will lead to instability. Williamson's managerial utility maximizing model, basically Oliver Williamson in the year 1963 said that each manager will aim to utility maximize basis the salary, discretionary funds that it has on its disposal and the prestige. So this is the utility function and the manager will want to maximize the utility function. It has an implication where it leads to expense preference behavior कि ज्यादा खर्चा हो, हो जाता है in this model. Firms may invest in unnecessary projects to increase manager perks, which leads to increasing cost. One more model is the Calder's multi-objective firm, जहां पर the firm will switch between sales, profit, and growth maximizing models. It was postulated by Nicholas Calder in the year 1966. So no single dominant objective. Objective keeps shifting between the three: sales maximizing, profit maximizing, and growth maximizing. Sayat and March in the year 1963 basically postulated the behavioral theory of the firm. Firms are organizations with multiple stakeholders and decisions result from bargaining among coalitions. So this is another model where behavioral traits are taken into account. Real world firms often follow rules of thumb, not strict optimization. In the year 1932, Burley and Means basically talked about managerial theories and they spoke about a model where ownership is separated from management. Shareholders own the company and professional managers run it. So the consequences rise of managerial capitalism potential misalignment of goals. So जो owner को करना है वो manager को नहीं करना है, जो manager को करना है वो owner को नहीं करना है. So that separation in itself leads to different models. That was basically uh, pushing for other models. Why are other models as relevant, if not more, in the real world rather than the neoclassical model where profit maximizing is what a producer usually does? Barriers to entry was first postulated by Bain. He said that there are various and different barriers to entry. Okay. The type of barriers are maybe economies of scale, where existing firms operate at a very low cost due to large scale, product differentiation, limit pricing, access to distribution channels, legal barriers like patents, licenses, intellectual property rights, so on and so forth. That also leads to barriers to entry. Okay. The impact of barriers to entry will protect existing firms, affect market structure and competition. So, very brief table I have made in order to understand the different theory, the economist, and the key objective, and a few notes. So, Baumol stated or gave us the sales revenue maximizing model. It has a larger output and lower price. Morris, Williamson, Calder. So, this is what it is. Take a moment to take all this information in. You may note it down. All right. You can pause the video if you're seeing it at a later time and then continue on. But please note all these things down. Great. Now, consumer theory and welfare economics is something that we have already done. We have already seen the Slutsky equation, but there are a few questions which has taken inspiration or mixed consumer behavior with the producer behavior by talking about different economists. So Slutsky equation breaks down the substitution effect and the income effect, and this is what the Slutsky equation is. Okay, Marshallian demand function is equal to the Hicksian demand and del xi del m, which is basically effect of money income on the demand of a particular good. Linear homogeneity in demand function is where the demand is unaffected by increases in price and money income in the same proportion because it's homogeneous of degree zero. Welfare economist Tibor Skitotsky basically said that it is a model which makes the Kaldor-Hicks model better. Okay, the model is an improvement if gainers can compensate losers and still be better off. Losers cannot bribe gainers to prevent the change. It is better than the Kaldor-Hicks model because it avoids circularity. So Kaldor-Hicks will judge moving from A to B as efficient and also B to A as illogical. But that all is taken into consideration by this Skitowski double criterion. Then we come to a very famous welfare economics theorem that's called the Arrow's impossibility theorem, where Kenneth Arrow in the year 1951 basically said that it's impossible to design a social welfare function that satisfies a set of reasonable fairness criteria and also takes care of individual preferences into a consistent collective decision. So या तो इंडिविजुअल अपने आप को सेटिस्फाई कर रहे हैं, नहीं तो सोसाइटी अपने आप को एज अ होल सेटिस्फाई कर रहा है विद अ सेट ऑफ रीजनेबल फेयरनेस क्राइटेरिया. ओके, फेयरनेस क्राइटेरिया में बेसिकली दीज आर अ फ्यू थिंग्स दैट हैव टू बी टेकन इनटू अकाउंट. non-dictatorship, interdependence of alternatives, efficiency, and unrestricted domain. That's all the preference bundles are allowed. Key concepts that you would already know because we've already done consumer behavior, and some of them will come in general equilibrium like Pareto efficiency, potential Pareto improvement. Okay, social welfare function is again a very important function which maps individual utilities and aggregates it into a societal utility function. Okay, this is basically a summary table of welfare economics and consumer behavior. You can pause the video and just take a look at this. Now we go to a very important block where we talk about the production possibility frontier or the PPF. It basically gives us how the inputs in a particular economy efficiently produces output. Okay, so to understand how the PPF illustrates resource allocation, opportunity cost, and efficiency in an economy, you'll also learn how to distinguish between linear and bowed out PPF. So normally the PPFs that you would see are out there in this economy will look like this. In the XY space where X and Y are the two goods that are being produced by the economy, you can see that I need to sacrifice more and more of a good in order to produce a little of the other good. I have to keep on sacrificing more and more. And that is what happens when I have a concave or a bowed out PPF, which is a very realistic case because as I produce more and more of a good, my effort in it will keep increasing. It's like you take an orange, an extremely juicy orange, and when you squeeze it to take out juice, firstly, you have to squeeze very little in order to take out a lot of juice. But once most of the juice is out, you have to press extremely hard to take out the last few drops of juice out of that orange. So the more you have to press, the more effort has to be taken in order to take out little juice. So I need to therefore give more and more of the other good to be able to get a little bit extra of the other good. That is why the PPFs are bowed out in real life. The PPF shows all combinations of two goods that can be produced using all available resources and the current technology. Only two goods are produced as I showed you because I took two axes. Okay. Resources are fixed. XY space में कुछ ऐसा. I can have linear PPF as well. I can have linear PPF as well. That means constant opportunity cost. I can have bowed out where I have increasing opportunity cost. Right? And let's talk about PPF in terms of opportunity costs. So if I want to increase my production of X, for example, by one extra unit, I need to sacrifice some amount of Y. The amount of Y that I need to sacrifice in order to increase my quantity of X is the opportunity cost that I'm talking about. It's called the trade-off when it comes to the PPF. Okay. So that movement is what gives me the opportunity cost. And this is only an example of the same. Okay. Why is PPF linear sometimes? Because we have constant opportunity cost and where the two goods are perfect substitutes. When we have the concept of perfect substitute, we get constant opportunity cost. Okay. It's bowed out for specialization reasons because the law of diminishing marginal productivity kicks in. Okay, so it's bowed out because of that reason of law of diminishing marginal productivity or law of variable proportions. Okay, efficiency versus inefficiency. On the curve, it is an efficient point. Inside the curve is inefficient, and outside the curve is unachievable. Okay. Movements and shifts along the PPF. Movement is change in the production mix. Outward shift happens if I have technological progress. Okay. Inward shift will happen due to situations of war, disaster, or resource depletion. The actual amount of L and K available in the economy has somehow depleted, then I'll have an inward shift of the PPF. An increase in the economy's ability to produce goods and services over time. An outward shift of the PPF will happen with economic growth. Causes will be technological progress, increase in the labor force, capital accumulation, and better institutions or policies. Okay. This is an important description of the different PPFs. When will what be applicable? It's a good time to pause in the particular point and write all these things down. It's important. Now, coming back to the law of variable proportions. Law of variable proportions, as I've already shared, is similar to the law of diminishing marginal returns. It basically puts the production into three stages where I have increasing MP, decreasing MP but positive, and then negative marginal product. These are the three stages. Increasing returns, diminishing returns, negative returns. I've already shared with you the graph. What are the reasons? Example. When do average and marginal products fall? So, marginal product, average product. MP greater than AP, AP is rising. This is MP. MP is equal to AP, AP is at a maximum. MP less than AP, AP is falling. Okay. This is what is the relationship between marginal and average products. What are the edge cases? MP or AP goes negative. Negative marginal product, adding more of the variable input actually reduces the output, indicates extreme overcrowding or mismanagement. Negative average product, it's extremely rare and would mean that a total output is negative. Total output becoming negative is a very rare case and is not going to happen. Okay. Assumptions behind the law of variable proportions, and the explanation is on the right. And the connection with cost curves. I said this: MP rises, MC is falling. MP falls, MC is rising. So marginal productivity and marginal cost is related. When MP is rising, MC is falling. And when MC is rising, sorry, is my marginal cost. When MC is rising, that MP is falling. Okay. important concepts and description. I have actually put many tables in this video wherein I'm showing you these. I will also make it available to each of you, but it's extremely important that you pause the video and take all these notes down. This is an extremely important, you can actually call it a revision or a very quick recap of what are the important areas that you really need to know when it comes to these examinations. Now we'll talk about the important concepts and the economists behind it. Okay, this is again extremely important that you need to remember. Behavioral theory, who are the economists behind it? Sayat and March. And accordingly, I have made a complete table of the concept and the economists behind it. Please pause the video and take a look at this. Conceptual linkages, key idea, and which theory is it connecting with? Right? Okay. Now it's a good idea to take a look at a few questions that have been repeated time and again in production and cost. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. June 2012, question number 2. Arrange the following in chronological order. Which came first? CS production function, Cobb-Douglas, translog, and the law of variable proportions. So the law of variable proportion came first, then the Cobb-Douglas, then the CS, and then the generalized translog production function. So it's 4213, and that's 3. So if I were to talk about exact dates, the law of variable proportion came in the 18th century, Cobb-Douglas 1928, CS 61, and translog in 71. So these are the years. This is the chronology. Answer is 4213. June 2012, question number 3. Match the following. Behavioral theory of the firm was given by Sayat and March. Marginal productivity theory was given by J.B. Clark. Double criterions, Skitowski and impossibility, Arrow's impossibility theorem. So 3, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 4, and 4, 3. Answer is A. Economist and the concept. We need to match that. 12. Match the concept with the economist. Sales maximization is the objective, is Baumol. Growth maximizing objective is Morris. Managerial utility function is Williamson. Sales profit growth maximization is Caldor. Right? So 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 3, and 4, 4. So which option is it satisfying? 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, 3. It's A. It's A. June 2012, the model of managerial enterprise is associated with Robin Maris. So Robin Maris basically developed the managerial theory. which is the growth maximization model. Okay, so that's option B. Robin Maris. Number 20, June 2012. Who developed the concept of barriers to entry? It was developed by Bain, J.S. Bain, in his Industrial Organization book. It was developed by J.S. Bain. Answer is A. July 2016, L-shaped average cost curve is witnessed in large firms because only the law of increasing, no. Law of constant return, no. Only a law of constant return operates, no. The operation of law of decreasing returns is continuously postponed. This is what the answer is. It's D, because this is increasingly seen in very large firms that as the output is increasing and increasing and increasing, at some point of time, it just flattens out, right? The cost is almost constant. So we get L-shaped curves there. 2017, Cobb Douglas is not characterized by, it is not characterized by constant returns to scale. It can be characterized by that if alpha and beta. Oh, yes, A and 1 minus A. So the addition is 1. So it is constant. Unit elasticity of substitution, yes. Variable elasticity, this is what it is not characterized by. Variable elasticity of substitution. It's constant elasticity of substitution. Here it's equal to 1. Linear homogeneity, yes, because A and 1 minus A sum up to 1. So answer is C here. July 2018, question number 41. Assertion PPF can be a straight line. Factors are not specialized and can be substituted at no extra cost. That is exactly why PPF is a straight line, because the two goods are perfect substitutes. So A and R are both true, and R is the correct explanation of A. So answer is A. Consider the following statement about the law of variable proportion. December 2018, input ratio is changed because only one of the input is changing. So A1 is incorrect. MP and AP become negative. Yes, MP becomes negative and AP can also become negative ultimately. Technology change is constant. It's constant. There's no technology change. Only 2 is correct is what is the answer. Answer is A. So December 2018, match the economist with the field of contribution in mathematical economics. Slutsky developed the consumer behavior analysis. So 1A3, Arrow developed the CES production function. Leontiev developed the input output, and Danzig developed the linear programming. So A3D4, A3B4, C2, B1. Yes, that's option B. Take a look at option B. It's option B. Right? 2018, given below are two statements. One is labeled as assertion and the other is the reason. So a CES production function covers a large class of production functions. Yes, that's true. CES production function has the property of constancy of elasticity of factors. Yeah, that's also true. And that is exactly why it covers a large class of production functions. Answer is A. It is covering Leontiev, Cobb-Douglas, all those production functions where I have constant elasticity of substitution. All of them are covered by CS. June 2024, match list 1 with list 2. So here again, I need to be aware of the economist, which economist has done what. Specific factor model was postulated by Paul Samuelson and Ronald Jones. Product life cycle hypothesis was Raymond Vernon. Reference similarity hypothesis by Stephen B. Linder. Price magnification effect was Stolper-Samuelson theorem. So price magnification effect is actually an international trade theory. So most of this is actually more macro than this topic, but important to know these economists and the models that are there. A4, B3, C1, and D2. Yeah, B, Bombay.